I found out the hard way that in a quiet American neighborhood, there are two things you simply don't mess with: someone else's property and anything that even remotely connects to federal infrastructure. At the time, I didn't know that. Back then, I figured the worst thing that could happen on my street was another passive-aggressive note about trash cans or grass being. Within minutes, responses started pouring in. Some neighbors were angry on my behalf. Others speculated about vandals or bored teenagers. One guy even offered to loan me a generator, like we were preparing for a siege. And then there were the silent ones. The people who didn't comment but viewed the post multiple times. The ones who probably knew exactly who had a habit of finding problems in other people's yards. About 20 minutes later, Linda responded. She said she had reported the damage to the HOA, mentioned that unsightly wiring had been concerned before, and urged everyone to remain calm until the provider fixed the issue. It was written in her usual polished tone, calm, official, and vague enough to sound helpful without actually saying anything. I didn't reply. The next morning, just after 8, the provider's truck pulled up. The technician, Mark, stepped out, mid-40s, sunburned neck, carrying a coffee thermos that had clearly seen years of use. He didn't even need a ladder. One look at the line, and he let out a low whistle. "That's clean," he said. "Real clean." "Accidental?" I asked. Even though I already knew the answer, he shook his head. "Nope, that's a tool cut. Someone wanted it gone." He took photos, ran a few tests, then paused longer than I expected while scrolling through something on his tablet. He looked up at me. "What do you do for work?" he asked casually. I hesitated for half a second, then gave him a general answer, nothing classified, just enough context. He nodded slowly, like something had just clicked. "That explains why this triggered upstream alarms," he said. I frowned. "Upstream alarms?" He explained that my line routed through a shared commercial exchange. Normally, a residential cut wouldn't attract attention, but my circuits were flagged as priority traffic. When they went dark, it didn't just disappear quietly. That cold, sinking feeling returned, the kind that tells you things are about to get bigger than you expected. He made a call, then another, stepping a little farther away, speaking in a low, professional tone. When he came back, his posture had changed, straighter, more formal. "They're expediting the repair," he said, "but there would be some questions." I didn't even have time to ask what kind before the first black sedan rolled onto the street. Then another, and another. They parked neatly, almost rehearsed. Doors opened, and people stepped out. Men and women, not flashy or aggressive, just unmistakably official. Suits, earpieces, that quiet presence that doesn't rush but doesn't waste time either. My neighbors noticed immediately. Garage doors froze halfway open. A kid on a bike stopped pedaling. Curtains shifted. Linda appeared at the edge of her driveway, clipboard in hand, like it was instinct. One of the agents approached me, polite and calm, asking for my name and ID. Another spoke quietly with Mark while a third walked the alley, photographing the cut cable and surrounding area. Everything was methodical, almost boring in its efficiency, which somehow made it more unsettling. Linda drifted closer. "I'm the HOA president," she announced before anyone asked. "Is there a problem?" One of the agents turned to her, smiled professionally, and began asking routine questions. Had she noticed anything unusual? When had she first seen the damage? Had she reported it to anyone else? Her answers came quickly, too quickly, clean and rehearsed. She claimed she discovered the damage early that morning during a routine walk, said she documented it immediately, and insisted she had no idea how it happened, though she was very concerned about neighborhood safety. I watched her as she spoke, not with anger, but with a detached curiosity. When you spend your career watching systems fail, you start recognizing patterns, and her story felt like a log file that had been edited just a little too carefully. The agent nodded, thanked her, and then said something that changed the atmosphere entirely. "Ma'am, because this line is associated with critical communications infrastructure, we need to determine whether the damage was accidental or intentional." Linda's smile tightened. "If it was intentional," he continued, "there are federal statutes that apply." That's when I saw it. A flicker. Not exactly fear, but calculation. They asked me questions next, where I'd been the night before, who had access to my property, whether there were any ongoing disputes. I answered honestly, handed over my photos, timestamps, and the app history. One of the agents thanked me, saying I had done exactly what they would have recommended. Meanwhile, Mark and the crew kept running tests, and every result pointed to the same conclusion: deliberate, targeted, no collateral damage. About half an hour later, they asked her to step aside. She tried to stay composed, but her story started to unravel under the pressure of timestamps and call logs. At first, it was small inconsistencies, a different time, a vague detail misremembered, but then larger cracks formed. Why she was outside that late, why she hadn't mentioned it earlier. The agents remained polite, but firm and relentless. Statements were taken. The severed cable was bagged and tagged like evidence from a crime scene. The street, which had been buzzing with curiosity an hour earlier, fell into a heavy, meaningful silence. By noon, the repair was finished. My connection came back online, clean fast, as if nothing had happened. The agents gave me instructions: keep my logs, forward any documentation from my employer about the outage's impact. They explained possible outcomes, fines, restitution, even criminal charges if intent was proven. Then they left. Just like that, the sedans rolled away and the street slowly exhaled. Linda stood there, motionless, watching her authority dissolve in real time. After everything settled, something subtle changed, not just around me, but in how people looked at each other. It was like everyone suddenly realized that the invisible lines we pretend don't matter actually do. Garage doors finished opening. A lawnmower started somewhere down the block. Kids cautiously returned to the sidewalks like deer testing a clearing after a noise. Life resumed, but it felt different. Linda remained where she was for a long moment, arms folded tightly, staring at where the last sedan had disappeared. Her clipboard hung at her side, useless. No one approached her. No one defended her. That silence spoke louder than anything else could have. By evening, the neighborhood app was exploding. Old screenshots resurfaced, people quoting Linda's past comments about unsightly wiring and community standards.